You talked about business law being enjoyable, and regarding business law, people all the time when they're wanting to get into their own business, they're like, hey, should I continue being a DBA, just operating for myself, or should I become an LLC or incorporate? Is there one of those things that is really ironclad that, hey, you're not touching my personal stuff, or
Sure.
kind of talk about those three ways of doing business and how it protects us.
Well, of the three you mentioned, the ironclad, the only one that's ironclad is ironclad in that it will give you no protection, and that is you described a self proprietorship, just somebody who's doing business, just whatever, DBA. They're a self proprietorship, just out there doing whatever. That person has no liability protections. They should get a nice umbrella policy, whatever, but they have no intrinsic protections available to them based on how they're organizing themselves. From there, the LLC and a corporation both have protections. Nothing is ever ironclad. Okay, I'll explain more in a minute. Each vehicle has their pros and cons. The only thing that I would say, boy, this type of situation, it's hard to fathom a time when you would use one instead of the other. Is if you're just doing like holding real estate, and that's, I mean, the textbook example of when to use an LLC. Without going into crazy amounts of detail, that's has a lot to do with a lot of tax advantaged reasons for if you want to pull property out and move some things around. There's a lot of good reasons to keep real estate in an LLC. Real estate should almost always be kept in an LLC. Okay. That being said, most folks, in my opinion, are fine operating as an LLC. LLCs can elect S corp. They can elect corporate tax treatment. Okay, so there are instances where somebody would benefit from having corporate tax treatment instead of partnership tax treatment, which is what you get under an LLC if you have multiple members in your LLC. So in that case, you kind of have the best of both worlds. You get some of the casual, less formal structures of the LLC, but you're getting some of the nice tax benefits of the corporate format, such
Best
as
of both worlds.
right,
Yeah.
such as no self-employment tax and things like that. The nice thing about LLCs is you have a lot less formalities. The funny thing about that, though, and this is where I'm going to circle back to ironclad, that phrase. Formalities and following rules is what helps to make your protections more ironclad. Nothing is ever ironclad, okay? But the more formal you treat your entity, the more separate from yourself you treat it, the more protected it is. So the law, they call it piercing the corporate veil. Okay? Silly phrase, but that's what they call it.
Okay.
If you treat your corporation or your LLC as your own piggy bank, okay? If you pay your own private bills with a check from your LLC, or you pay for your Disney World vacation with a check from, David Crell LLC. Not a good idea. The proper thing to do is to make a profit distribution from David Crell LLC to David Crell, the owner. log it in. I use QuickBooks, but whatever you might use, whatever your books are, Peachtree, or even if it's just a plain old ledger, but keep your books. And then you'll deposit it into your personal bank account. It's a needless step, seemingly, right? It's all the same person. It's a needless formality on the surface, but it's a formality that the court expects to see. From the court's perspective, this whole legal fiction that we have created in this country of corporations, right? I mean, we give them free speech rights, for crying out loud. We give them religious liberties, of all things, right? We give these corporations the same rights as people, okay? Well, if we're going to do that, we better treat them like they're actual separate things from ourselves. And so the way to go about doing that is to let them have their own bank accounts, keep their books separate from you. Don't just take out of their pocket, pay, your bills with it, pay yourself your salary, and then a profit distribution, whatever.
Okay.
But, you can do those things, but log it in your books, keep good records, do all the things that one does to keep good, detailed records of everything. And if you're doing all of these things, then your protections are far more likely to be upheld.
So isolating that business, truly isolating it from yourself,
right?
The farther you get apart, the farther the danger is.
Correct.
Going to be.
If it's truly kept at nice arm's length from you, then if it has a problem and it gets sued, its problems should be kept away from you. If it's intertwined and it's always up in your business and you're up in its business, paying for its stuff and it's paying for your stuff.
I can see that be a problem.
Well, guess what the court's going to say? Hey, Mr. Crell, you're masquerading around as David Crell, LLC. That's really you, buddy. I see what you're doing. Hey, creditors, have at 'em. Yeah.
So now, you mentioned things like QuickBooks and Peachtree, and is it your advisement then to keep a separate book with all the illegal things over is that what you're saying, to have two sets of books? So this book is for the government and this book is that what you're? No, I'm kidding.
It worked for Al Capone for a long time,
right? Yeah, put that ledger in the safe.
Don't let your bookkeeper get anywhere near the FBI. Okay.